is that 40% of the population is vitamin D deficient. 40% of the population is magnesium deficient. 30% is zinc deficient. And the list goes on and on and on. And each one of these disease states or deficiency states, and they are both the same thing here, okay, they tend to overlap, but they're not necessarily exclusive of each other. So 40% is probably largely understated. Then if you look at the incidence of obesity, it's about 60 to 66% of the population. That's, are you overweight? The answer is yes. So 2/3 is probably a little bit closer to what it works with the adult population. So this is over 133 million people, plus probably another 50 or 60. So think about that. Most of the people that you know have some type of chronic illness. And if you think about it, how many of your friends, relatives over the age of 30 aren't taking some medication to treat some ailment that can be called chronic? You know, you twist your ankle, fine, I get it. You break an arm, marvelous. Somebody hits you inside the head with an object. That's an acute injury. But how many people are taking things on an ongoing basis? The answer is a lot. Most of your friends, I would be shocked if you had any that weren't. So it can be any number of things. So what is the incomplete list of these illnesses, right? What's the incomplete list? Number 1 is diabetes. Number 2 is arthritis. Number 3 is asthma/COPD. That's obstructive pulmonary disease. Depression, obesity, chronic kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. And you know, there's more. You know, that's like Billy Mays, but wait, there's more. Okay, and how many of these things are smoking and drug-related issues? Alcohol, drug, smoking. The answer is a good bit of them can be, but they don't have to be. So most of these conditions have a hefty self-induced component to it, which is to say that you asked for it, or you contributed to it, or you did this to some extent to yourself. You overate, you overindulged, you underslept. You didn't eat properly. You may have thought you were. You may have done exactly as you were taught, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you did the right thing. And that's where we start to fall apart. So what are the causes? You know, what do we do to treat it? And better yet, what do we do to prevent it? And that's really what this thing is all about. So the best way, I believe, this is a Kleinism, and maybe I'm wrong.
No.
But I'm probably not, okay, is to look for commonalities. Now, this is where it gets to be fun, pattern recognition. And this is where going to a physician with a broad educational background, sometimes known as expertise. My wife refers to this as your library. I'm going to go to my library, the one inside my head. I've got a library outside of my head, too. It's marvelous.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, hundreds of volumes. That's where I go if I can't remember something, especially if I can't find it quickly enough to suit me on the internet. Look for typical comorbidities. These are pattern recognitions. You know what makes an effective expert? Is somebody who can recognize patterns. So Melissa right now is trying to figure out why the board isn't working exactly right. So she's looking subconsciously, only because she hasn't got enough sleep, I think. No, she is conscious, okay, to look for patterns with regards to why things aren't operating exactly perfectly. That's what we do in medicine if we do a good job. If we do a poor job, we don't. And then you look for common causes.
Right. Yay,
so
fixed it.
Right, there we go. Now all of a sudden I can hear in both ears, which I typically can't anyway, so it doesn't matter. So we're going to start with something like diabetes. Why? Because it's one that we can all relate to. Diabetes is something that touches most human beings in the United States population, our family as it were. It's very, very common here. Diabetes. It's becoming more common here. It used to be rare to see insulin-dependent diabetics, okay, in the general population, the adult population. It was unusual to see type 2 diabetes in the pediatric population. It has changed unbelievably in the past 20 years. So what have we done? Do you think we've changed? Do you think we have changed genetically? I don't think so. Do you think our food has meaningfully changed? The answer is really no. It hasn't. It's been looked at. It hasn't changed. So what has changed? So when you're looking at diabetes, it's commonly found with hypertension. So a lot of people, the first thing they pick up is the hypertension. So, well, I'm going to go ahead and take a couple antihypertensives, a couple blood pressure medications. I'm going to pull salt out of my diet. It's actually the chloride that does the damage, not the sodium. So we're going to go ahead and do the usual things for hypertension and get the number down without paying attention to what may have caused it. Chronic kidney disease. Interesting problem. Very commonly occurs with diabetes, and yet we don't necessarily look at early chronic kidney disease indices. We do not do it. Medicare won't cover some of the more sophisticated ones unless you already have kidney failure.
Now, speaking of Medicare, we've got Mark on the phone.
Okay.
Open enrollment is coming up soon for Medicare.
Oh, we'll get to that too.
Right, and he wants to know, he's got some questions about what he should do. I don't know if we...
Well, hang him on the line for just about 5 minutes. Okay, then Mark, I have got you. I am going to pour my library out at you as to what you need to do, and I hope that there's going to be 2 or 3 other people listening in on this conversation.
Oh, most definitely. So go ahead and give us a wrap-up on what we got here.
Okay, so diabetes and peripheral vascular disease, arthritis, commonly found with kidney disease, commonly found with heart disease. But here's another interesting thing, is that when you have rheumatoid arthritis, okay, you're 50 to 70% more likely to have cardiovascular disease. So the inflammation that you see with arthritis will cause crossover disorder, crossover morbidity. Gum disease, gingivitis, increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. Alzheimer's disease associated with COPD and asthma. Cancer, diabetes, COPD, obesity, chronic kidney disease, and it keeps going on and on and on. And so we're going to discuss some of the bits and pieces that we do with our medications to address more than one problem. And we'll get to that after a bit. Now, before we do that, I'm going to deal with Mark. Now, do we have Mark on the line right now?
Mark is on the line, but we have about 30 seconds before we get ready to head to break.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and since I want the radio crowd to benefit not just the internet crowd, which, by the way, we are broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, which Periscope and Twitter parted ways. So we are on that. We're also on Facebook several times in different ways, shapes, and forms, live. Go ahead and check out Stages of Life Medical Institute on social media. Throw a .com behind it, stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com. And hold on to your shirt. We will be back in just a moment. Stages of Life Radio, live on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Hey, I pushed the button, it worked.
No kidding.
So we were dying in here.
It was getting a little bit dicey there.
Yeah, I know. I was like texting out. I'm like, I'm dying in here. We both need water. It's really hot. I don't know what the issue was. I had changed a couple of things.
You flipped a bunch of things around and started working again. I think it's when you kicked it that it
No,
made
I
the
did
biggest
not
difference.
kick it. Don't you lie now. All right. So, Mark, we will deal with you in just a minute. Anyway, wow. What a weird weekend. Let's see, we got about any questions on social media? So we've got 9, 10, 11, 12 people watching already. They just keep popping in. Today we are talking, it's like the 4th in the series now about nutritional supplementation.
Yeah. It's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, and this is the one, basically, what Doc is telling you is about the clusters and things that you can fix and things that you have to look at that you might not be able to fix. If you might be working against yourself, if you're not careful, if you don't know what you're doing.
Very easy. Very, very easy to work against yourself, to paddle upstream, when in fact, so much of what we do will treat more than one disease state at one time. You just have to understand how the patterns operate. And that's kind of what we do at Stages. Understanding how do you deal with weight loss and diabetes. Those two things go together all the time. But what about hypertension? How does that factor in? What about dementia or a family history of dementia? What about autoimmune disorders, which are extraordinarily common? You have to treat the first domino. And now most of you people that are listening in right now understand that metaphor. Okay, the social metaphor is something like this. We used to have this game called dominoes. It goes back hundreds of years. And there are these little tiny tiles that were made out of ebony and ivory, okay, back in the day. Then they were made of plastic.
Hey, hang on, Mark.
And then you would gamble playing it. If you were in Puerto Rico, elsewhere you were a child and you just kind of put this thing together. But if you were really creative, you stood them on edge and then knocked them over and watched them flip across the room. That's the metaphor I'm looking for. As you go tipping dominoes.
Most definitely. So a little bit under a minute here left. Mark got excited. I'm on the radio. Nope, not quite yet. Nope, I put him on. I took him off. Cancel you for a minute. I'll be back when we're ready.
Ultimate cancel culture.
Most definitely happens. You can text in or call or type a question in if you like. The text line's 23680. And yes, I sometimes answer the text, so don't panic if you get a response.
Yeah.
So what the heck? I always get these question marks back, and I'm like, what? What are you questioning? I said hi.
Yeah.
I said thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a few other things at once.
Right, 407-422-1212. And Mark is on the line. We're going to get to him in just a second. Let's see. Jingle, jingle. This is about drugs.
Is it really? But did he do anything that wasn't?
Yeah, you did some peace and, you know.
Peace, that's right.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back. Did the computer just skip?
I'm not sure.
That was weird. All right, this is Stages of Life Radio. Melissa Fox. Oh, hanging out with the doctor, Dr. David Klein. How are you?
Doing well,
You're
thank
doing
you very
well.
much.
Good.
Excuse me while I go get my gloves.
Turn and cough.
Yep.
Okay, Mark. Mark is on the line. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Yeah, how you doing? How you doing, Dr. Klein?
Not bad, Mark. What you no good today? What's up?
I can hardly hear you, but anyhow,
What's doing? Is that any better?
Enrollment's coming up.
There we go. All right.
That's a little better.
There we go. I'll speak a little louder for you.
Enrollment's coming up, and I got that advantage, and I'm not happy with it. Blue Cross. And I was going to ask you, what would you recommend? To go back to A, B, and supplemental?
Okay, Mark, it works a little something like this. The way the Medicare Advantage plans work, and they all do this, there are no advantages when they put the word advantage in there. Okay? If somebody says that it's portable, it's not. If somebody says that you have full choice, they don't. There's nothing about the insurance industry that's truthful. So here's how you do it. Okay, the Medicare Advantage plans work best for two parties, and not you. They work well for the insurance company, and they work well for Medicare because it cuts Medicare's losses, and it employs a private insurer to make sure that you don't spend too much or actually get the benefits out of your Medicare. So the way they're paid, they get $15,000 to $20,000 per year paid directly from Medicare to the insurance carrier. And they factor it so that they take a third right off the top as commission. Okay, so $5,000 to $6,000 a year goes straight to the insurance company's bottom line. The rest of it, you'd had best make sure that it works. Now, to most people, that sounds like a lot of money, but it truly isn't. The first time you get an MRI, first time you end up in the hospital, the first time you end up with some surgery, it goes away quickly. So most of the better docs, okay, just let's understand how this works. Better docs, we're not commodities, don't do advantage plans. Many of the docs aren't smart enough to know that there's a difference between Medicare and Medicare disadvantage. And you have a disadvantage plan. So what I'm going to suggest is this. Go back to when Medicare was a good insurance. In fact, if you do this, it's the best insurance you can get. It is the Rolls-Royce of the healthcare system. Nobody wants to hear this. This is the secret the government doesn't want you to know. Actually, it's the secret the insurance companies don't want you to know.
There it is.
And that's, you get red, white, and
Would
blue.
you still recommend Mutual of Omaha?
Yeah, well, I haven't gotten there yet. Mark, let's slow up a little bit here.
Okay.
We can't give away the sauce just yet. So the first thing you do is you go to mymedicare.gov. Okay, which if you haven't done this yet, you should sign up for it. mymedicare.gov. And what this is the way that you can access what the Medicare folks think or know about you. So get into it, look at it, and figure it out. The second thing you do is figure out, okay, the Medicare Part D, and this is the medication part first. If you're taking any expensive medications at all, hopefully you're not, but let's say that you were, what you do is find out.
No, I don't have any medication.
Then you get the cheapest Part D that you can get. That is the prescription coverage. What seems to work there.
But I'm 69 years old.
I don't care how old you are. You get the cheapest one there, and it might end up being Aetna.
And I want to switch from Advantage back to the original plan A and B, and then
Okay, I'm going to do the talking right now.
Okay,
I'm going to steer the bus for you, Mark. Because what's going to happen is you're going to ask the questions, and you've already made the wrong decisions. All right, because you're just like everybody else, me included. So you start with the Part D. Now, you're not the only one that's listening right now. So what you do is you select that Part D so that the medications that you're receiving, and if they're generics, they're almost always covered by all of them. It's the pricey stuff that you have to shop around to find out whether or not it's on the plan, or which plan covers it, which one doesn't. Most of them don't, so you're going to have an easy go of it. So shop your Plan D first. Aetna overall seems to be a pretty decent one. United, believe it or not, is a pretty decent one overall. Then you go ahead, once you've accomplished that, you go to the supplemental. Now that's where it gets interesting, and you can pick any of them, and it doesn't matter which one it is, as long as it isn't the one that does your prescriptions. If those two are different, they cannot flip you into a Medicare Advantage plan. If you listen to what they tell you, oh, well, it'll save you a check once a month if you have both in the same, and it'll save you $30. No, it doesn't, because then the next step is they flip you right into a Medicare Advantage plan without asking, and that is an HMO. They will tell you to look on the card, and it says PPO, it's like an IPO, it can say UPO. It doesn't matter what it is, USO for that matter. These are HMOs. They will tell you what to go, where to go, and with whom you have to do it. And nobody wants to be told what to do in this country. More so, it's just like an airline or just like any other complicated piece of equipment. You are actually more complicated. You do not want to go with the low bid parts. You don't want to go with a low bid mechanic. You don't want to go with a low bid maintenance contract. You want to get the very best that you can afford. And this is how you do it. This is what I did for myself. This is what I've done for my family. You get red, white, and blue Medicare. Old-fashioned, that's what you want. Buy the Part D, which is prescription, and get the supplemental with any other party that you want to. I happen to like Mutual of Omaha. It's a little bit more expensive, but they don't change the rates very frequently, if at all. So the other ones, they'll jerk you around.
Because
so,
they have a stable bunch of people, correct?
No, not at all. It's because Medicare doesn't really change their rates much. So Mutual of Omaha knows exactly what they're going to be paying, where some of these others, they think you're stupid. It's like the cable company. So they'll go ahead and jerk your rates around without you paying any attention, and you don't really care because you don't want to have an interruption in service. So if you go to, let's say, a Sirius radio, and you start off with their $6 product. Okay, after end of year, it's $20. Unless you cancel it, then they call you back, and then you get the $4 or $5 deal again, and you do that each year. Insurance companies are famous for doing this. Now, here's the secret sauce. The secret sauce goes something like this. Let's say, well, I signed up for this stuff, and they told me I can't do it for a year. I can't get out of this for a whole year. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm in this box. What do I do? And the answer is here. I'll get you out of it in 5 minutes. And you go back to that Medicare.gov and sign up. You're going to love this one. Sign up for prescription coverage with any other company, and it automatically disenrolls you from the Medicare Advantage plans. Nice. Okay, you want to talk about upsetting the apple cart in the insurance industry. We got to put that on billboards. Okay, if I hadn't been overextended, with paying for the other what do you call those darn things? Public service announcements, I would do that. But the fact of the matter is that if you go on Medicare.gov and sign up for somebody else's prescription coverage, it automatically disenrolls you. That is the secret sauce to this business. Otherwise, you're looking at the details, and you can make changes to your prescription plan anytime you choose to. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to sign up for a year without, with a waiting period in X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. The supplemental, the one I prefer is Mutual of Omaha. So far as the prescription coverage is concerned, it could be Blue Cross, Aetna, United. I wouldn't go with too many of the others.
It says, someone's warning you here on the text line, don't forget docs that practice owned by management
Oh, you're going to
company.
love this one. Owned by the management companies.
Yeah.
So this past week, I got a stack, of
Andy.
documents from an insurance company that I can't mention, but it begins with U. And what they did was they sent these questionnaires on a bunch of my patients to find out whether they have any of these diseases down below. And the idea was because they really care about you. No, it's because they want to jerk your rates up. Okay, it's called rating you.
Yeah.
Okay, they're going to pay the docs $50 to $100. $50 if you do it on paper, and $100 if you go online, so they don't have to put it on paper or take it off the paper. So they are out to get you. If you feel in the least bit paranoid, listen to your gut, because I'll tell you what, they are in fact out to get you. Yeah. And God bless Joe Namath. He looks like hell, doesn't he? But the upshot of it is that he's being paid handsomely to put you on somebody else's fish hook.
Yep, don't do it. And so is Jimmy Dynamite
Yes.
Walker now as well.
There you go.
So.
Yeah, so the upshot of it is that you really have to take care of yourself in this. But that is what I have patients do. I used to have an insurance company across the parking lot from me, and I would march people over there. There's one
Dave.
guy
What
over there.
happened to David?
Well, Dave is around someplace. His buddy Caleb is actually the guy that understands how this stuff works. We
know
do
that
have a
is.
stack of his cards in the office if you ever want to contact them. Caleb, very, very kind of meek and mild, Clark Kent sort of guy with a very attractive wife. And I did not ask him what attributes may have led up to this. I suspect it may be a wallet-related issue.
Oh, you stop. And he goes on to say in the text
good
that
guy.
your Advantage provider list is even smaller. So thank you, Annie, for the text.
Yeah.
23680 is the text line, and we read them live on the air unless, there's potty words or they don't make sense.
Well, potty words.
we try.
Speaking of potty words,
no.
Can I use black cow as a
No.
fertilizer on my blue potato vine? Not unless you want your potatoes to really taste feculent, I would think.
Glycoa.
Yeah, I got by the potty. Okay, in any event, so what do we have? What's coming up next? What do we have there?
By the way, Mark is off the phone. His line is now open at 407-422-1212. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
That's what we have right now, because you
All
were
right,
talking
good.
about nutritional supplementations. We have like another minute to
Okay,
put
well,
the
let's
cap
start
on
with
this.
let's start with trying to figure out some of the more common sorts of things. So, how do you approach a patient as they walk through the front door with some of these multiple chronic diseases? People wonder, well, why is it that we ask so many questions? Why do we have people fill out so many forms? And the answer is very simple. The more data that you have, the easier it gets to actually figure out what to do for that individual.
You're not the first. I've got every time I sent someone, they're like, "Oh my God, 22 pages." I'm like, "You want this
it
guy,
right or you want it wrong?"
You want them to guess?
Yeah, you can. If there's a drive-through down the street, you can go there. They'll spend 5 minutes with you, give you whatever prescription
literally
you
put
want,
your
and
name
kick you
on a
out.
Post-it note.
Makes no sense. I want to know every darn thing about you.
Yeah.
So let's just say depression. So you've got a depression issue and diabetes. So what you're going to receive is going to be something that'll deal both with the diabetes as well as the depression. Okay. Let's say that you have depression and a sleep disorder. Let's say that you have atherosclerotic heart disease and elevated cholesterol. So when you're taking the nutraceutical products, you can treat more than one thing with the same medication. So if you take a pill for problem number 1, but it also works for problem number 2, and it certainly works for problem number 3, if you know how to do that, it comes in really, really handy. So wouldn't you know, melatonin isn't just for breakfast anymore. Melatonin is an anti-diabetic medication. It's also a weight loss medication, and wouldn't you know, it's also an antidepressant. Who would know this?
You.
Yeah, that's my job. So understanding whether or not somebody has early insomnia, mid insomnia, or late insomnia is going to dictate what I'm going to do to treat their diabetes. How do you handle their atherosclerotic heart disease? They also have elevated cholesterol, so we're going to get a statin on you. That's the first thing that's typically done. What does that do? It tends to cause kidney disease to get worse. It makes liver disease worse. It makes mentation a whole lot harder, makes depression worse, and it makes dementia a lot worse. Or you can take high dose of folic acid and acetylcysteine and bergamot and get the same thing done without damaging anything along the way.
Cool.
So there's a lot of fun that goes into this. It's pattern recognition. What are your disease states? What are the different things that you have going on? Now, there's some things that I'm certainly not skillful enough to take care of. Not that I necessarily know anybody that is.
Right.
How do you handle alcohol abuse? Okay? Don't know. Okay, there are things that you can take that may be beneficial for it, but for the most part, it's not a disease that's easily treated by any particular technique that I know. Now, there are people out there that'll talk about going to, Bill's meetings on the weekends and this kind of stuff, or however many times per week. And something that may be the only intervention, okay, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. That may be the only intervention that actually works for alcoholism.
Right.
Short of that, all these things are little
and
tiny
granted,
Band-Aids.
you switch out one addiction for another often with that, whether it's coffee, cigarettes, and meetings, but still it's healthier than drinking.
How many alcoholics do you know that are not smokers?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I know one.
It's rare.
In 42 years.
It's rare.
So you're not really swapping one for the other, but they tend to be addictions at the same time. Do you fix alcoholism and smoking at the same time? And the answer is no. You have to decide which one you're going to start with. I typically start with the alcohol. Okay, so that because it tends to cause issues more rapidly.
Okay.
So, and then from there you can have people start cutting back in their caffeine, cutting back in their alcohol, or their smoking, that is. So when it comes to these sorts of conditions, there are things that the doctors are not necessarily all that effective in treating, and alcoholism is one of them. Oddly enough, cigarette smoking is one of them. It takes somebody to say to themselves, hey, I'm done with these things, before they actually get anywhere with it. You have got to make that decision that, gee, I am done with these things because there's nothing I can do. No patches, no pills, no tapes, none of that stuff that's actually going to keep you from smoking if you don't want to. And then you need to understand about addictions, that it's not one disease, one chemical. So if you're a smoker, okay, yeah, you're addicted to the nicotine, but there are a bunch of other chemicals in there that are equally addictive. But what do you do when you stop smoking? You had best avoid people that smoke, because there's a social component to it. So you go to a pool hall, okay, and you're not smoking, you see how well that works out. You go to a bar that allows smoking, you see how long you stay off cigarettes. Doesn't work real well.
Tough.
But what about the physical automatic behavior, sticking things in your mouth, chewing, so
the oral fixation, the hand-to-mouth fixation,
that's what we used to
call
it.
Difficult.
Chewing on things like pens and pencils and whatnot,
straws,
chewing gum,
toothpicks,
so ruining
your teeth.
You're not going to kick the entire habit immediately. It doesn't work that way.
We got a couple of questions coming in on the text line and on Facebook, I think it is. So, and it also looks like, there it is. The music is playing. We'll be right back. It's Connections Radio. Hold on to your hats. There we go. I knew there was music somewhere.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm
Well, we
looking
like
at the
that
clock.
music.
I like
It's
it a
good
lot.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Linda did a good job with that.
Hi, Tanya. Thanks for checking in. She wants to know what you can take for tinnitus
and TMJ.
and TMJ.
Yeah, it's TMJs, which is making sure that I know what she means. Okay, now here's something interesting about TMD, which is temporomandibular dysfunction. Everybody has two of those joints unless they have some kind of surgical issue, having had them removed. Okay, but TMD. So if you're an average individual and you just sit back and grit your teeth, just grit them, you can actually make yourself develop tinnitus.
Sure. And if you had a coke habit in the 80s, wait a minute.
That's right. There you go. So ringing in the ears, okay, is something that you can see by and as a result of gritting your teeth. So if you can induce it, you can stop it. So what other things will cause tinnitus other than damage to the inner ear? And the answer is you can have 11th cranial nerve damage, that's the spinal accessory nerve, as well as the trigeminal nerve. So when you're gritting your teeth, you're goosing what's called the third division of the trigeminal. So I have some patients that have tinnitus that I use topical, now mind you, this is important, topical gabapentin. Okay, why topical? Because it goes directly through the skin, hits that nerve without causing the brain to do goofy things, and helps with the tinnitus. The other thing that can cause tinnitus that may be related to the joint, okay, is when you end up with crystals that precipitate out and you start developing tinnitus and starts driving you nuts, you will in fact start gritting your teeth due to, wouldn't you know it, insomnia. So I have people fix that. And the way you fix it is like so. One, you start cutting back on your salt, must do. You need to cut back on your caffeine, must do. I didn't say anything about cutting it out. But then you get yourself brand specific, something called a Philips ultrasonic toothbrush, along with one of those rubber erasers that as a kid you popped on the back of a pencil. Well, instead of putting that rubber eraser on the pencil, you stick it on the bristles of the brush. It takes a little bit of force to do this, but you will get it. But it's a very important step. Then what you do is you apply that rubber eraser to what's called the mastoid bone behind your ear. And to do that, I would suggest that you go on the internet and look up mastoid. Big picture. It's kind of this bone that's kind of bulges out behind your ear. You can touch it. It's just under the skin. It's 3/8 of an inch under the skin. And you apply the rubber to that area and turn the toothbrush on. Now, you had best be sitting when you do this or lying down. Lying down's better because it's going to set you off. Okay? You may experience some vertigo, but it does the job. It shakes those crystals loose and very frequently helps restore function. Interesting stuff. You do it a couple minutes a day, maybe a little bit more, but you have to do it sitting or lying down or you're going to end up falling down. It's not so good. Did we make it?
Welcome back.
There we go.
There it is. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. The computer ate half of this. Like, it's been one of those Sundays, you know what I mean? I mean, the Dolphins sucked.
Well, it's okay.
They blew it.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Redskins to come back. You know, I've been looking
Did
for
they?
them.
They
on
were
the
doing
internet.
really good today.
No, they just don't call themselves the Redskins.
Oh, you mean
anymore.
that?
Yeah.
I was going to say Heineke's actually doing quite well.
Yeah, my first wedding, we played the Washington Redskins fight song. That was it beats the heck out of the Four Seasons.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay, we got some questions for you here. Stages of Life Radio. We do this Sundays 4 until 5 p.m. But he does it, Dr. Klein, on the internet, stagesofliferadio.com.
24/7.
24 hours a day. Yeah, whatever you like. Or you could just go to Stages of Life medicalinstitute.com, and there's a splash page, and whatever your heart desires, medically or otherwise, boom, you should be able to find it. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, it's not hard to find because we've had these programs and we just flip them to that platform. Why not? We've got them recorded. We just give them away.
All right. Jane was echoing your sentiment about quitting alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, and she said dieting is the same way, one food at a time.
Well, that might work.
Maybe.
It depends. It's like anything else. When you push away from carbohydrates as a family or push away from fructose in particular, you have got to push it away as a chemical. So the most addictive substance known is not cocaine. It's not tobacco. It's not alcohol. It is fructose.
Sugar.
High fructose corn syrup.
Yes.
That's the one you throw away first.
Yep.
And it's actually a family of foods. So if you want to consider fructose a food, which it is, and by definition, the answer would be yes. And then at that point, you'd be doing all right. But generally speaking, a diet, a diet. What is diet? Diet is a word. It's a Greek derivation for the word to be disciplined. Okay, diet, discipline, not denial.
Or denial.
Not denial.
No,
it's
not
discipline.
that die. I thought it was diism, double dynamic.
No. It's discipline.
Ah, look at that.
So what do you So when you're putting yourself on a diet and whatnot, understand that what you're doing is disciplining yourself, and it's very, very easy for you to lose your discipline.
Gotcha.
Especially when it comes to fructose. Now, what other foods are addictive? Most addictives, high fructose corn syrup. The second one's kind of interesting, and they're the fatty acids.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So things like that are in cheese, meat, and whatnot. These are the things that kind of sneak up on you.
Oh.
What else will do it? Carbohydrates in general, for certain, and salt. So if you're going to go ahead and create the ultimate, let's just say, addictive food that there is, you'd come up with Fritos. A Frito-Lay product, which has corn syrup, salt, and fat.
Salt, sugar, fat, the whole deal.
The whole deal. I bet you can't eat just one. All right? Potato chips are very much the same way. So look at what you're doing and then take it from there. So in any event, that's what I have to say about diet right now. We'll do another show.
Maria checked in on the text line 23680 if you got a smartphone.
Okay, what is she?
Text us.
Yeah, I have a genius phone personally.
Yeah, I don't know, mine's smarter than me. Yeah. Maria wants to know the doc's opinion on the COVID vaccines. Do you recommend it? Which one do you recommend and why?
Okay, so Maria works a little something like this. It beats the heck out of getting COVID. Now, I've had the COVID vaccine. I've had the booster, which we now call the third shot or third jab, but I also had COVID. I've treated many, many hundreds of people with COVID. I have diagnosed thousands of people with it at this point through my laboratory work. And what I will tell you is that it's a whole lot better to remain alive and having had the shot than it is to end up in a box. So there are freezer trucks behind the hospitals that still have dead bodies in them.
14 of them out there.
Yeah, they still have dead people in them because they can't bury them or otherwise process them fast enough. So yes, I believe that the COVID vaccine is the way to go. The one I'm going to recommend, or the ones I'm going to recommend, are the Pfizer and Moderna. Take your pick. The Pfizer is a little bit faster. The Moderna may be a little bit more effective, but the data is spotty.
Yeah.
Sometimes yay, sometimes nay. But this is the truism with it, is that coronavirus has been around a long time. I have been testing for coronavirus, COVID-19, since this pandemic started. We were one of the first in the country to be able to do it.
Actually, a little before we caught on.
Yeah, we were actually here, one of the very first in the country. With regards to the rapidity, we're one of the fastest in the country. But we've actually been testing for COVID virus for about 4 years. MERS, SARS, those are two other fatal coronaviruses, but also garden variety coronavirus, the non-fatal ones. All of these viruses are similar. And where do the similarities end? they end in morbidity and mortality. Other than that, they do exactly the same thing. They enter the cells exactly the same way. They do damage exactly the same way. Now, your immune system deals with them, coincidentally, in exactly the same way. So if you have a common cold, and coronavirus is a common cold virus, how long do you think you keep immunity to it? And the answer has been known for decades. That's anywhere from 60 to 180 days, which is why kids get the same colds over and over and over again in daycare, and why the teachers get sick year after year after year from the same kids, actually, because they cannot and will not maintain immunity. So when you get the jab, as it were, expect every 6 months you're going to need it, because it still beats the heck out of dying. So yes.
And as we know, one of our compadres, Russ Rollins, very, very adamant about everyone getting the vaccine.
Russ, is he okay?
Got COVID. He just got out of the hospital yesterday. He's on the breathers. But, yeah.
Well, if you see Russ, give my regards and tell him I got a couple things to suggest that he do, in addition to listening.
Right.
But Russ is a good dude.
That's how it does.
Pretty smart guy, actually. He's sort of a cut up in the morning.
Yeah, he's fun. So anyway, but he's doing better. Having been vaccinated, still got the COVID, went into the hospital, and has survived, so to speak. So,
but he got,
but
you
he
don't
got
end
the
up in the
stink.
hospital unless you're sicker than stink.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
I'm hoping the button's going to push here, but it doesn't seem to be pushing. Thank you so much. Ah, there we go. Maybe I hit it a few times.
So just only a few moments of dead air?
No, just like whatever you said. So now what are we doing? That's okay. That was what went over. So
for our radio, for our live audience here, they're sitting very quietly in the background. It's all very good. So what have we got there? It says, "Hey doc, I'm a 62-year-old female, good weight, no meds, and I take your Dr. Dave's down to basics. Okay, do I need to supplement with additional D3, zinc, or question mark? The answer is yes, actually. The vitamin D you most certainly need. The dosage that you're looking for is 5,000 IUs. Now, what is it that vitamin D3 does? D3 is sometimes known as cholecalciferol, and it's not a vitamin. It is a hormone. The body uses it in virtually every cell in the body except for red cells, believe it or not, because there are no cell nuclei in red cells. So vitamin D3 deficiency hits 40% of the population. The down to basics only gives you about 400 IUs instead of 5,000. So you need to add vitamin D3 to it. Zinc, perhaps. It depends on what else you're taking. If you're taking magic minerals with it, it's in the magic minerals. Otherwise, you want to take about 35 milligrams of zinc gluconate. Got to be careful what the zinc moiety is. If you go on stagesoflifevitamins.com, just stagesoflifevitamins.com, and look for zinc. Look at the bottle. It'll tell you how much you need. It'll tell you what the moiety is. If you use ours, that's great. If you use somebody else's, that's fine. You just have to get the right amount, but the right moiety. Is there anything else you should be doing at 62 years of age? Is really how I interpret that question. And the answer is yes. At 62, you're already postmenopausal. So your estrogen level has tanked. You're going to develop osteoporosis. Osteopenia first, then osteoporosis to follow. So you need to take vitamin K2. The dosage there is 150 to 200 micrograms per day. We have those. They're about the cheapest things that we've got. Third thing is chelated strontium. So you're taking vitamin D3, vitamin K2, and strontium. So now not only are you helping reduce your risk of cancer with the vitamin D3, reducing your risk of multiple sclerosis with the D3, reducing your insulin level, reducing your blood sugar level, making pre-diabetes less likely, but you're also treating osteoporosis. What does the zinc do? The additional zinc is necessary for your immune system to work to keep you protected from other sorts of things. At that age, hyperfolate for the cholesterol and to reduce the plaquing in your arteries.
Yo, Facebook, we are a radio station and we pay licensing fees, so please don't block parts of our audio.
Hey, look, you have to keep doing it too, don't you?
I know. Everyone's, I really do. You're right. They got us again last week. I mean, with 30 seconds of CCR. Bam! Your video's partially muted. All right.
It was probably done in India.
Yeah, stop it. It's Facebook. Yeah, we broadcast live, Stages of Life, Medical Institute. We are on Facebook and all the other social media platforms that will have us.
There you go.
Which doesn't say much about them, but it's okay. And, of course, Dr. David Klein, the doc, is in. And we have a lot of questions here. We got a couple on the text line at 23680-23680, or you can call in 407-422-1212. And let's see. I'm getting texted by the morning show for tomorrow.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
good.
yeah. They're like, what are you doing? I'm not sick. Everything's good.
All good.
All right, so which one you want? Text line or the Facebook one?
Let's take the text line first.
Okay. Hey, Doc, 62-year-old female.
I just did that one.
Good weight. You did that one. Oh, my
did.
God. I'm so sorry.
I got ahead of you.
I got ahead of me. All right, let's do Sarah Grace's then.
Right.
What do you think of the Merck COVID pill coming out, or will it contain ivermectin? I thought that was Pfizermectin. Isn't that what I call
That's
it?
what they call it. Yeah, so we're going to wait and see what comes out with that. We'll wait and see and find out whether or not they get their EUA. But the long and short of it, there's so many things that you could be doing now that you don't necessarily need to buy let's just say, a patented medication. Something comes out with a brand name. So the trick is to getting the job done for $10 or $20 rather than $200 or $300. It's that simple. So like if you look at the monoclonal antibodies, there are people out there that I'm not going to get the injection because it doesn't have it doesn't have a long enough history with regards to its EUA, and now that they've gotten approved, I still won't do it, but I'll get the monoclonal antibodies. Congratulations, you're getting something that'll never come off an EUA and came from another human being, and God knows what kind of diseases you're going to get from it downstream. Yep. So there are people out there making all kinds of goofy decisions based upon rationale that just I don't understand. Mm-hmm. So now, if you think that monoclonal antibodies are a good idea, and I kind of do under certain circumstances, then why in the hell wouldn't you take them orally? And you can in a product that's called lactoferrin-containing colostrum. This is how it's done in nature. If you take a calf and you don't give that calf colostrum within the first few hours of life, it dies of infection. That's one of the neatest things about it, okay, is that colostrum has a long, storied history in nature that goes back hundreds of thousands of years. So I take lactoferrin-containing colostrum. When I did get COVID, and I got it, and I got sicker than the dickens. My wife, she got sick. She still got issues with it. We took hydroxychloroquine, which takes 30 minutes to work. It costs about $15 a month. And it's been around for 50 or 60 years. It's been used to treat malaria all over the world. We use it on a daily basis to treat folks with lupus, to treat folks with scleroderma, to treat folks with rheumatoid arthritis. And wouldn't you know, it's been safe all of these decades. Or you can go do ivermectin because somebody did a blog on it. My point is that I'm going to go with something that has 60 or 70 years worth of experience attached to it and no problems. So I took the hydroxychloroquine. And what was neat about it is I could watch my oxygen sats go up 30 minutes after I took that medicine. Now, my wife very cleverly called in her best people at Amazon, and they sent us one of those little oxygen sat monitors to my house, so I didn't have to go into my office and swipe one. And we were monitoring our oxygen sats. And when mine dropped down into the 80s, which you have to know that's a big problem, would have put me in the hospital. Moments after taking my hydroxychloroquine, it would right back up into the mid and high 90s. It's fascinating how that stuff works. It's an anti-inflammatory. So what I discovered about this is that you take it longer than 5 days, which is the French model. So I prescribe it for my patients for 15 days to 30 days and expect that you're going to be on it even a little bit longer. Why? Because you're going to keep the inflammatory issue long after the COVID has come and gone, because your immune system is bouncing around kind of like a resonating bell. So that's how I do it. So with regards to Merck, God bless them, that's going to make a lot of money for them. But my money actually goes on using lactoferrin-containing colostrum, which is a $30 a month deal. And then there's some things you do with that. And I'm happy to share it with you if you have another question about it. So what else we have? What else is on our tap here?
Are all these plant-based food alternatives really healthy for you? I think you might even know the answer to this.
You already know it. Yeah, I wrote an article back in 1990. Okay, it was called "Death by Soy: How the American Public is Healthing Itself to Death," and at that time, people thought, soy is great for this and great for that. We're going to soy you this and we're going to soy you that. And what I did was I did a little research on it, looking at thyroid disease, trying to figure out what foods caused hypothyroidism. And I spent a year doing this. And what I found was that my patients who participated, I had several hundred people do this with me, they kept a record of their temperatures throughout the day, their pulses throughout the day, and recorded what they eat. And after a year and a quarter of looking at this kind of stuff, my former brother-in-law, took the data and crunched it. And what we found, in short, was that a number of hours after you consume soy, that's soy lecithin or soybean oil, you would watch the temperatures drop. Now, thyroid has one function, and that's a control temperature. It's called basal metabolic rate, and you measure that with temperature, if that's the most common way of doing it. And by getting people off of soy, their thyroid functions improved. Their weight dropped, depression got better. This thing's like irritable bowel syndrome and whatnot got better. So so soy is what you need to avoid. In particular, there are two isoflavones. One's called daidzein, the other one's called genistein. So lecithin is another way that it's sold. So if you go pick up your chocolate bar, it'll say sugar, cocoa, a little of this, a little of that, and then something called lecithin. That stuff is poison. Now, if it says sunflower lecithin, it's okay. Lecithin from soybeans contains those two isoflavones. So it's not actually the lecithin per se, it's the soy that comes with it. So it's the casing around the lead slug, that copper jacket, as it were.
About a minute and change to tell us a little more about colostrum and its usage, please.
Okay, colostrum is a natural product. Okay, the one that I prefer to use is manufactured or produced really in New Zealand, where it's illegal to remove the lactoferrins. In this country, they'll give you colostrum, all right, but they take the lactoferrins out and sell it separately. So you want New Zealand way derived colostrum, and this contains the lactoferrins. Now, if you want to have some fun, go on National Library of Medicine's PubMed, that's PUBMED.gov, and do a search, lactoferrin, put a space, a plus sign, and then write COVID. And you're going to see, 60 articles looking at lactoferrins for the prevention and treatment of cytokine storm. That's where you die with COVID. So the data's out there. It's not just me chiming on about it. I've been using this stuff since COVID hit. So for a year and a half, I've been using this stuff with my patients. The other one that you want to take for along with this is N-acetylcysteine, NAC. So if you do the same search, acetylcysteine and COVID, you're going to find that it does exactly the same. So I take both. I recommend you take both and keep yourself nice, safe,
and with that,
happy.
Any of the products that I've mentioned today, stagesoflifevitamins.com, they are available for your scrutiny, your purchase.
Join the family.
Yeah, and join in. Patients are always being accepted. Telehealth visits are possible. Most.
When you're hard of hearing as a doctor, telehealth is like being in a star chamber.
Yeah, I know.
So we do them, but only under duress.
Some medical insurance is accepted. Anyway, and I think that's about it. Otherwise, have yourself a great week.
Yes, it's been a pleasure, and be well.
You've been listening to Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Check out stagesoflifemedicalinstitute.com or stop by 1917 Booth Circle in Longwood near the intersection of I-4 and 434. Call 407-679-3337. That's 407-679-3337. Dr. Klein accepts many insurances and Medicare too. Join us next Sunday at 4 p.m. on News Radio WFLA Orlando.